All right, so tonight we're going to be doing a deep dive.
Ooh, spooky.
Yeah, spooky. We're going to be looking at the world's spookiest cemeteries.
Oh, fun.
Buckle up, right? So we've got this source material. It's called
Uh-huh.
Los Seven Cementerios Más Terroríficos del Mundo,
Okay.
which translates to basically the 7 most terrifying cemeteries in the world.
I like it.
Yeah, I think by the end of this, you might just be sleeping with the lights on.
I might be.
So let's just jump right into it, right?
Let's do it.
Cemetery number 7, La Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires.
Ooh, Argentina.
Yeah, so this one it's massive. I mean, we're talking like over 5.5 hectares
Wow.
and over 4,600 vaults.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Like
Yeah.
it's not just the size that makes it eerie, though.
Right.
What do you think makes it eerie?
Well, so like La Recoleta, it's kind of unique, right? Because
Yeah.
it's almost like a miniature city for the dead.
Oh.
So you've got these like grand avenues, and they're lined with these ornate mausoleums, each one more elaborate than the last.
Right.
And it's actually a pretty popular tourist destination,
Yeah.
even, during the day.
Sure.
But imagine that, like, at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's shrouded in darkness, stray cats weaving through the shadows.
Yeah, it's like straight out of like an Edgar Allan Poe story.
Totally, yeah.
And speaking of unsettling stories, right? Our next stop is going to take us to New Orleans,
Okay.
which, we all know, the city that embraces the macabre.
Mhm.
And cemetery number 6 is the abandoned pet cemetery.
Oh.
Now, this one's not just spooky vibes, like it has a really dark history.
Right.
So the owner, Madam Dorothy Thompson, was murdered in
Oh.
1985. And they actually found her body within the cemetery.
So they just left it there.
No. But that just adds like another layer to it. Right. And then on top of that, right, we've got Hurricane Katrina, which ravaged the city in 2005. And this left the cemetery, even more desolate and overgrown.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. And among the tombstones, like the weathered tombstones, there's actually one that's just marked Satan.
What? Yeah. Oh, gosh. That's terrifying.
So from the haunting history of New Orleans, we're going to travel across the globe to cemetery number 5, Okunoin Cemetery on Mount Kōya in Japan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this is Japan's largest cemetery. It's a key site for Buddhism.
Okay.
It's been around for over 420 years.
Wow.
Pretty old.
That is old.
And, this one's known for kind of a serene atmosphere.
Really?
Yeah, so visitors are often struck by the stillness
Okay.
and kind of the feeling of being surrounded by, like, this ancient energy.
I can see that.
But that peacefulness, right, that
Yeah.
takes on a different dimension when you consider the sheer scale of the cemetery.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, the main path, right, it winds through a forest of these, like, giant cedar trees.
Mhm.
Over 200,000 tombstones and memorials are along that route.
Oh, my gosh. So you're just, like, completely surrounded.
You're immersed. You're absolutely immersed, and there's something both peaceful and unsettling about that.
Right.
Right.
It's like, are you, like, with nature or are you with
Right.
a bunch of ghosts? you know?
Right. And there's, adding to this like mystery there's a long-standing belief that the entire mountain is filled with bodies
What?
from centuries of burials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So from the vastness of Okunoin, we're going to go to cemetery number 4, the Old Jewish Cemetery in Prague.
Okay.
This one's known for its incredibly dense and kind of chaotic arrangement of tombstones.
Oh, I think I've seen pictures of that.
Yeah, it's wild. It dates back to the 15th century.
Wow.
And it's so overcrowded with tombstones that it's impossible to walk between them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's got to be, like, claustrophobic almost.
It's like a physical manifestation of history,
Yeah.
like piled upon itself layer after layer.
Right.
But what makes it even creepier is what lies beneath the surface.
Oh, no.
So what's truly fascinating about the Old Jewish Cemetery is that it's not just a single layer of burials.
Okay.
There are 7 layers beneath the ground,
Oh, my God.
creating a tower of bones, essentially.
Wow.
Without any organized structure. So imagine the weight of history,
Yeah.
the echoes of countless lives
Right.
contained within that space.
That's heavy, man.
It's both chilling and humbling,
Totally.
Our next stop takes us to a place steeped in tragedy and mystery. Cemetery number 3, La Noria Cemetery in Chile.
Ooh.
It's located in an abandoned mining town, and it's got a really, really dark history,
Okay.
known by some as a cursed place.
I feel like all mining towns are kind of cursed.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So La Noria was a bustling nitrate mining town in the late 19th century. And when the industry collapsed, the town was basically just left to decay.
Oh, wow.
And the lives of the miners, right. And the conditions that they faced,
Yeah.
those are still, like, palpable in the atmosphere of this deserted town and its cemetery.
I can imagine that.
So it's believed by many to be a site of, like, intense negative energy,
Yeah.
fueled by the suffering and despair of the miners that lived and died there.
Right.
And some people even whisper that, like, the veil between worlds is thin there.
Oh, really?
So it could be a hot spot for, like, astral travel and other paranormal activity.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah. I mean, whether you believe in the paranormal or not, right?
Right.
There's just no denying that Noria has this really eerie atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. You can feel it, right? Like the desolation of the landscape, the crumbling buildings, the wind whistling through the empty streets. It's got to be pretty spooky.
And now for a cemetery that needs no introduction.
Ooh, which one is this?
Cemetery number 2, the Catacombs of Paris. The Catacombs, right. A place that has captured imaginations for centuries.
Definitely. I mean, that's like bucket list for so many people.
Absolutely. And, so the Catacombs aren't just a cemetery, right?
Right.
They're actually the world's largest ossuary.
Which means,
like, they hold the skeletal remains of millions of Parisians.
oh my God.
Yeah, so it's this vast network of underground tunnels that stretches for miles beneath the city.
Wow.
And so back in the late 18th century, Paris had a problem. Their cemeteries were overflowing.
Oh.
And so their solution was they moved the skeletal remains to these unused tunnels,
Wow.
creating a really awe-inspiring but also, like, unsettling spectacle. It's mind-boggling, like, the scale of this.
Yeah.
Right, so miles of tunnels lined with bones.
That's a city of skeletons.
Right, a silent city of the dead lying beneath a city of lights. And only a small section is actually open to the public.
Right.
The rest of it is shrouded in darkness and mystery.
And probably like really good stories, I would imagine.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
And finally, we arrive at cemetery number 1, Wadi Salam in Najaf, Iraq.
Okay.
This isn't just a spooky cemetery, right? This is potentially the largest in the world.
Oh, wow.
And it's still growing.
Jeez.
So Wadi Salam, which means Valley of Peace, has been in use for over 1,400 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's this vast expanse of tombs and mausoleums, and it just stretches as far as the eye can see.
Can you imagine just seeing like this sea of tombstones just going off to the horizon?
A city of the dead, right?
Yeah.
Larger than many cities for the living.
It's kind of beautiful in a way, but also terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really remarkable is that Wadi Salam is still an active cemetery.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Over 500,000 people were buried there during the Iraq War alone.
Wow.
And burials continue to this day. It's a testament to, like, the enduring cycle of life and death.
Right.
Playing out on a massive scale in the Sacred Valley.
Yeah, for sure.
If each person buried there could tell their story, it would be like a vast and significant historical record.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost overwhelming to think about the sheer number of lives, right? Like the joys and sorrows that have been laid to rest in this ancient place.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think about how, like, some of these cemeteries are as large as cities.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder of the vastness of time and the countless lives that have passed before us.
For sure.
But I think, as we've been talking about, cemeteries aren't just about death.
Right.
Also reflect how different cultures, like, view and interact with mortality.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, our source material, it's the 7 most terrifying cemeteries in the world.
Uh-huh.
Which might lead you to believe that cemeteries are universally perceived as, like, places of fear.
Yeah.
But in many cultures, they're seen as peaceful places,
Right.
of remembrance and connection with ancestors.
Yeah.
Like, the text mentioned how in Japan, for instance, visiting cemeteries is it's a regular practice.
Oh, okay.
It's a way to honor loved ones and maintain a connection with the past.
It's interesting.
It's not seen as morbid or scary at all.
No,
It's just a natural part of life.
Yeah.
And this perspective, it extends to other cultures as well.
Oh, for sure.
Like in many Latin American countries, holidays like the Day of the Dead, they transform cemeteries into these, like, vibrant celebrations of life.
Right, exactly.
Families gather, share food, remember those who've passed on.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a beautiful way to, like, kind of reframe our relationship with death.
Right.
Not as an end, but as a transition.
I love that.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, is labeling these cemeteries as terrifying? Is that a little bit of a cultural bias?
It's definitely a perspective worth considering.
Yeah.
I mean, the spooky aspects of cemeteries are undeniable for sure.
Yeah.
And, they tap into some pretty universal human fears. But it's important to recognize the diversity of beliefs and practices surrounding death and remembrance.
Absolutely. Our source material also mentions some intriguing beliefs about specific cemeteries,
Oh, yeah. Like what?
like La Noria in Chile,
Okay.
being a site of intense negative energy.
Okay.
From your perspective, what do you make of these kinds of beliefs?
Well, a lot of times these beliefs are rooted in local folklore and cultural traditions.
Okay.
Whether or not, you believe in negative energy,
Right.
Lenoria's history, right? The hardship and tragedy.
Yeah.
It's undoubtedly left a mark on the place.
It has.
Like the energy of those past events, right? Like the suffering and despair that the miners endured
Yeah.
seems to linger,
Right.
creating an atmosphere that some people find unsettling.
It's like almost like the cemetery itself has absorbed the emotional weight of its history.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how a physical space can become so intertwined with the stories and emotions associated with it.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us to another important aspect of cemeteries, right?
Mhm.
Which is their power to evoke strong emotions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even if you don't believe in ghosts or supernatural phenomena,
Right.
cemeteries can trigger a wide range of feelings, right?
Totally.
Like sadness, nostalgia, contemplation, even fear.
Right?
I know I get chills just looking at photos of the Paris catacombs.
Oh, yeah.
Like those endless rows of skulls and bones.
What's a lot?
It's both mesmerizing and a little bit terrifying, right?
Right. And the catacombs are a fascinating example
Yeah.
of how a place can simultaneously represent both death and immortality.
Oh, wow.
On the one hand, you've got the stark reality of millions of human remains.
Right.
A very tangible reminder of our mortality.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the way that the bones are arranged,
Right.
the inscriptions,
Yeah.
the sheer scale of it all,
It is.
it speaks to a desire to transcend death,
Right.
to create something lasting and meaningful.
Wow. That's a powerful juxtaposition.
It is.
And it's something you find in a lot of cemeteries all over the world, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like this desire to remember, to honor, to leave a mark,
right.
even in the face of death.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're trying to cheat death,
Right.
or at least make peace with it
Right.
by creating these elaborate spaces for the dead.
Exactly.
And these spaces become touchstones for the living, right?
Totally.
Places where we can reflect on our own lives,
Yeah.
our own mortality,
Yeah.
and our connection to those who came before us.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a conversation across time.
It is. It really is.
As we're discussing this, it's making me realize that cemeteries aren't just about death.
Right.
They're also about life, memory, and the stories that connect us all.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cemeteries are, in a sense, they're living landscapes.
Right.
They're constantly evolving as new generations add their stories to the tapestry of the past.
And those stories, as we've seen, can be both fascinating and frightening.
Totally.
Heartwarming and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
They offer a glimpse into the full spectrum of human experience,
Mm-hmm.
reminding us of the beauty, the fragility, and the enduring power of life itself.
Right.
So we've talked about a lot, right? We talked about the history, the culture, the emotional impact of these cemeteries.
Yeah.
But there's one more aspect that I find just utterly captivating.
What's that?
It's the sheer size of some of these places.
Right.
It's one thing to hear about it, but to actually stand in a cemetery that stretches as far as the eye can see, I mean...
It's got to be awe-inspiring.
That's a whole different level. And, that scale, it plays a huge role in how we experience these spaces, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a visual representation of the immensity of time
Right.
and the countless lives that have come and gone.
Totally, yeah.
Places like Wadi Salam, I mean, it's essentially the size of a medium-sized city.
I know.
They almost challenge our comprehension.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around it.
It's mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
Like, to think about getting lost in a city of the dead,
Yeah.
it's both fascinating and a little bit frightening, isn't it?
It is. It is.
It's almost like these massive cemeteries exist as separate worlds,
Right, yeah, for sure.
with their own rules and rhythms.
Totally, yeah.
It's like they become these, like, these liminal spaces.
Right.
Like existing between our world and the realm of the departed. And that sense of otherworldliness, it's amplified when you think about cemeteries like the Paris Catacombs.
Right, for sure. Hidden beneath the city.
Hidden beneath the bustling city above.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Miles of underground tunnels.
Billions of bones.
Filled with the bones of millions. It's a secret city shrouded in darkness and mystery.
And, it's because it's so hidden that it becomes a breeding ground for legends and folklore.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, people have always been drawn to the unknown.
Right.
And these hidden spaces, they become canvases
Yeah.
for us to project our fears and our fascinations.
Absolutely.
We imagine secret passages, shadowy figures lurking in the darkness.
Ooh, spooky.
Right. Stories of people getting lost and never being found.
It's like those spaces, because they're so removed from our everyday experience, right? They allow our imaginations to run wild.
They do.
And those stories, even if they're not rooted in reality, they can be incredibly revealing about human psychology.
Oh, really?
Right? It reflects our anxieties about mortality, our curiosity about the afterlife, our desire to make sense of the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding.
For sure.
Even though we started this deep dive focused on the quote-unquote spookiest cemeteries, it seems like there's so much more to these places than just fear and death.
Oh, absolutely. Cemeteries are complex.
Yeah.
They're multi-layered.
Uh-huh.
They're repositories of history and culture and memory.
Yeah.
And storytelling.
Right.
They offer a unique lens through which to view the human experience in all its complexity.
This deep dive has truly, truly changed my perspective on cemeteries. I don't think I'll ever look at them the same way again.
That's the power of exploration and learning, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It opens our minds to new possibilities, and it challenges our preconceived notions.
For sure.
And hopefully it inspires our listeners to do some exploring of their own.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Right. Take a walk through your local cemetery.
Right.
Do a little research. Discover the stories that lie hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, you might be surprised.
It might be.
Yeah. Every tombstone tells a story.
It's true.
Every cemetery holds a wealth of history and culture. And human experience just waiting to be uncovered.
Well, until next time, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world's most fascinating cemeteries.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.